Hello, welcome to today's episode on the Mindful Introvert podcast. And I'm Joe, and I help busy go getters avoid burnout by creating a more peaceful life through meditation and unconscious reprogramming. And I'm very excited for you to join me today, especially because I'm recording this episode with my new microphone. So hopefully the sound is much better. Let me know. DM me on my Instagram or send me a voice message that I know it's also possible. And let me know how much you like this better. And today's episode is going to be about the ego and our relationship with the ego. And maybe why we shouldn't try and kill the ego. So, if you're interested in knowing more about this, definitely stick around. What is the ego? If you think about all of the things that you've heard about ego, all of the things that you think about having a big ego or whatever it is surrounding the ego, what comes up for you? Just take a moment and think on what comes up when you think about the ego. I always thought that the ego was this very bad thing that we have in our lives, and we are meant to stop the ego and not, at least not allow it to go further than it should be, and not engage in situations that enlarge our ego, or where we are just being so proud that we are feeding the ego. And I don't know about you, but this is what I've always thought about the ego. And so I thought that it needed to be stopped. And I thought that it was serving me no good, and that I should stop listening to my ego, and I should just make it go quiet. And a lot of people think this as well, because of what society is telling us and what religion is telling us, in the fact that religion tells us that feeling pride is a sin, and that we should be humble, and that we shouldn't feed the ego, and ego is the devil incarnated, or whatever it might be. Other religions say other things, but I feel like it's a way for us to be feeling fear. And so it's almost like, oh, you don't be proud of yourself, or don't feel any pride in your life, or stop yourself if you're having an enlarged ego. You should be humble, you should give to charity, you should do this, you should do that. And so many expectations that we have, and sometimes we don't fulfill those expectations that are not even our own, our society's expectations. And by us not fulfilling them, we start to shame ourselves and blame ourselves, and feel extremely guilty, or feel that shame that is just making us feel miserable. And in essence, it is no good. So it's not necessarily the ego's fault. It is a lot about the conditioning that we have received all our lives, and that tells us that we should stop the ego. So I wonder, can there be other things that the ego is there to do for you? Because if it is so bad, if it is something that is so negative in your life, why do you have it? Why do we have an ego? What is its purpose in our life? What is it teaching us? What is its function? And so, my idea is that the ego is here to protect us, and is here to sometimes give us all of the options, even though those options are stressful and those options are with a lot of anxiety. Uh, it gives us options of thinking, okay, this can go wrong, and this can go wrong, and this other thing can go wrong. And so, we have an option to be prepared. So it is a lot of that. It is feeling feeling safe and comfortable in thinking a bunch of options that basically scramble our mind, but it gives us the time to prepare in case something goes bad. Or sometimes the ego also says something like, "Oh, you're not good enough. You're never going to make it. You shouldn't even try, because don't even bother. There's no absolutely way that you're going to make it." Or there's so many people that are so much better than you, so much prettier, so much friendlier, or whatever it might be, so much more than you, right? And what else it can say? It can guide you to a lot of anxiety, in the sense that you start to feel the physical effects of anxiety. You start to have sweaty palms, your heart goes faster, and you might even experience some dizziness. And all of that is just a traumatic response that your body has, and it is induced by the ego. And the ego, if you think about it, it is one of the most ancestral things in our body, because our brain, obviously the prefrontal cortex is the neocortex, so it's a little bit more recent, and the ego is not there. The ego is in the reptilian brain. It is the portion of our brain that has been with us since before we were even people. And it's basically there to protect us and alert us for dangerous situations. But like I've said so many times on this podcast, our brain, so this part of the ego, this part of the brain, processes information and doesn't realize what is true danger and what is perceived danger, doesn't make that distinguish. So it just alerts either way, if it's real or if it's perceived. It has the same response. And that was very useful back in the day when we had to fight lions, where we had to source our food, we had to hunt, and we had to get shelter from bad weather or other dangers that we had to face in our survival mode. But today you are not in survival mode, or at least hopefully you're not. I'm sure that if you're listening to this podcast, you have means to at least have internet, at least to have a device that allows you to not be in survival mode. And but this part of you and this part of all of us is still present, and it still serves a purpose. And if you think about this reptilian brain, it just fires a response of flight, freeze, or fight. Yeah, three F's. I don't know exactly the order, but it is that. So it's flight or freeze or fight. So it is preparing you so that you can fight, freeze. Nowadays we freeze a lot because we don't have to fight or flight. And yeah, the last one being flight. And so it is the idea of you having to get ready to fight someone, fight an animal, or just having to run really fast for your life, and or freeze, that it is what we a lot of the times do in our present life, where we just our mind just goes blank. We just start to stutter, is that the word? Just got to start what I'm doing right now, just start to go like so this is the freeze part in my brain. I'm just making an example for you. And it is that part of our brain that just sends off this what am I trying to say? Again, the freeze in my brain and just attracting frozen thoughts. That it makes us have this response. And this is very useful, like I said. So, thinking that the ego shouldn't exist is something that is completely nonsense. It should exist, it serves a purpose, and sometimes we don't use it for the purpose that it is meant to be used for. Sometimes we think that it's something bad, when in fact it's neither nor. It's just something that is there and is there to protect us. And yes, I can acknowledge that sometimes it is there for stopping us. But that stopping us comes down to the balance that we have with our higher self and what we choose to listen to. It is our intuition or is it our ego? So I know that in a lot of ways that the ego comes up for me is, imagine I want to work out, I want to have a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle, and I want to work out, but my ego just tells me, oh no, go sit in the sofa and watch another episode of that series that you so much like. And my intuition tells me, no, you go and you work out and you will feel so much better and you'll feel healthier and it will just catapult your life so that you become even more fit and more energized and more inspired, and it's all going to be very good for you if you only you take the step to actually do something about it. But the ego is just like, no, you shouldn't do it. You're going to be so exhausted afterwards. You'll have no energy and you'll just want to eat, eat. So why just don't eat right now while you're watching TV? And so that is that idea of the devil and the angel in your in your shoulder telling you what to do. And most of the times we go by the ego, so by the devil. And so that's the connotation of the ego and the devil. But my idea, my true idea, is that the ego is that portion of us that is feeling very vulnerable and, in essence, is our inner child. And is that portion of us that hasn't fully grown up and hasn't fully understood that you are your own person capable of taking your own decisions, of making your own decisions, and you are someone that you can rely on and you can trust your own instincts. So the ego is just there to be a little bit of a needy part of yourself that needs support, that needs love, that needs attention, and is just there pulling you down a little bit so that you pay attention to it. And so I think it all starts, the way to quiet the ego is to give it what it needs. So if it is telling you that you're not good enough, that you shouldn't try doing something, pay attention to it instead of just saying, "Oh no, no, go away. I don't want to hear from you," or "This is just nonsense. I'll just quiet you." But instead of doing that, ask what it is, the message that it is trying to send, and what can you learn from it. So if it is saying, I'm not good enough, ask, you're not good enough for what? Compared to whom? And just ask those questions and challenge. I say all the time in this podcast, challenge the thoughts and challenge the ego and give it what it needs. Just tell them that you are there to listen to them and that you are supporting them and just paying attention, your full attention to what they're saying and their needs, and that you love them. It seems a bit weird for us to be talking to ourselves, but I can tell you that it is when I first started talking to myself that I could soothe myself and just stop having that validation coming from other people and start having the validation coming from myself. And so that is very powerful when we can give ourselves the things that we want other people to give us, because it's not that we don't need anyone else, but we can be there for ourselves. And that's the best part. And that's what the ego wants. The ego wants to feel like you are in partnership and that you are supportive of him or her or they, and that you are working as a team that has your best interests in mind, which it does. Ego has your best interests in mind. And then you have your higher self that I call the intuition, and just that portion of you that is in the flow and that is just trusting and has the faith that whatever it may be, you know best, and guides you along the way as well. But it doesn't have the traumatic response that the ego a lot of times has. So you get to make decisions from a much calmer place with more certainty. And it's just that thing that you just know. There's no explanation. It's just something. It's almost like a six. Oh, I'm trying to say this word. Six sense. Yes. Oh my God. Six sense. And that you're just paying attention to what it's telling you because you know that it has love surrounding it, and it has a lot of abundance and patience and all good stuff. Whereas the ego is not that it doesn't have love as well, but it comes from a place of lack, it comes from a place of fear, and it comes from a place of scarcity. And so that's why it releases those energies where you're feeling anxious, where you're feeling stressed, and that it feels like you're confused, you're overwhelmed, and you're self sabotaging and you're procrastinating. And all of these things are caused by the ego. But you have to remind yourself that the ego is part of who you are. The same reason that intuition and your higher self is who you are, the ego is also part of who you are. So, yes, you can create some distancing between you so that you can observe the ego and give it what it needs. But in essence, it is who you are. So, it is important to want to have harmony and and get to this balance in your life, where sometimes when you're crossing the road and you have to look both ways, yes, your ego comes in handy to protect you. And then you have other moments where you're just in your creative flow. And when sometimes you have your intuition pop in your head and you say, oh, maybe I shouldn't listen to that because it seems too risky, it seems too complicated, it seems this and this and this. And when you get all of these problems come up, that's the ego talking. So it's not so much to try to quiet the ego, but it's much more about listen to the ego, paying attention to what it is trying to warn you to. Because if you don't listen and if you're trying to continuously bottling your feelings, you're only going to make your ego speak louder, louder and louder and louder. And then you'll see a series of events coming to you that patterns, they come in patterns that you start to identify, but you don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know how to stop it. You just wanted to stop it, but you don't know how. And if you start to pay attention to these patterns and what the ego is trying to grab your attention towards, and when I say the ego, you think about the anxiety, all of the physical symptoms that you have, the stress levels, all of that, those are um, personifications of the ego, if you so desire. It's just having those symptoms that are telling you that it's your ego coming up. And so it's just having the balance, paying attention, taking a moment to, because imagine if you're in your day working, sometimes you cannot just say, okay, ego, what is it that you want? What is it that I can do for you? Obviously, you have other things in your life that you need to pay attention to that are more eminent. But if you say, okay, now I don't have the time, but I will get back to you later today, and you do at night when you have like 10 minutes, you journal, you think about what it was that earlier the ego was trying to tell you, and you just say, okay, now I'm here for you. Now you can say whatever you want. You can bring everything to my attention that I'm here and I'm paying full attention to you. And meditate on that. Do a lot of loving kindness meditation and send some love to your ego, and relax, and stop trying to bottle up all of your feelings, and stop trying to quieten the ego, and just let it go. Whatever comes up, acknowledge it, accept, well, not accept it, but accept it in the way that it is there. So acknowledge, yeah, acknowledge, and then let it go with kindness and with patience. And think of your ego as your inner child. So always talk to it as if you are talking to your younger self, and you're giving love to that portion of you that maybe needed a little bit more love, a little bit more attention. So I hope that made sense. And if you're having some issues with this, if you're getting a lot of overwhelm and a lot of burnout, if you're experiencing some burnout and anxiety and even depression in your life, reach out to me. I offer a 30-minute inner peace assessment call, and we go over a lot of these topics. We dive deep in what the ego is trying to warn you and what some of the blocks might be in your life and how to clear them and actually create an action plan to I always say this, actually create an action plan. Create an action plan to start coping with those and use a lot of tools such as meditation, journaling, and just challenging your unconscious programming that is so deep in you. And now is the time to change that. And so connect with me on Instagram. Go to my website, www.mindfulintrovert.com. I will leave everything in the show notes and I will be happy to connect with you. I will see you next time. Bye.